have double-clicked the Smart Client application, and I have it on my desktop right here for easy access. What I recommend you do is also you can right-click this and you can pin it to your start menu or to your taskbar, which I've already done. So the icon will always be here for quick and easy access. The camera system is something that I personally use on a daily basis, and as administrators of your sites, I would imagine that at some point you're probably going to be at a point where you're not going to be able to live without your camera. So just when you want to see the camera system or do anything with the camera system, you log into your XProtect Smart Client and you hit connect, and then that will take you to the main window where, give it a couple of seconds here, where you'll see your camera views, and at the top of the page you'll see the name of your saved view, the exports tab, the search tab, and the alarm manager. The most important three tabs are right here. The alarm manager is something that you're probably not going to discuss today, or it's not going to be of much importance to you. So with this main view here, I'm going to go over all the buttons and layouts and what you can do with it. So I have a default view of cameras that are grouped by outdoors and indoors, and I can access the views using this arrow button here. This is the view pane button. So by minimizing it, I can see just the cameras alone, no saved views. By clicking that view panes button, I can see the various groups that I have, the views that I have for each group, and I know that I have private views that are for myself only, or in this case I have it under admin. I have shared views that I share with my tenants, and with those, for example, I want my tenants to be able to see the outdoor cameras but not the indoor cameras. So again, these are groups, and then within each group you can have various views depending on how you want to group the cameras yourself. I recommend, for example, you can group the cameras by let's say cafeteria, parking lot, classrooms, outdoor sports areas, etc. So it's really just a matter of what makes the most sense to you and what is logical. Now, views should be pre-created by your system administrator, but we also want you to have the comfort of creating your own views if you want. So if you don't have permissions to go over here to the top right to click the setup button so that you can create your own views, then please create a tech ticket and they will give you the permissions. So before we get to that, each view consists of multiple cells, one or more cells. This is called a cell. Generally it's a camera, but you can have other things as well, like a web page, for example, showing the weather, or anything that you want. I mean, you can have your logo, you can have whatever you want in any of these cells. And you can double click a camera to see it in full screen, and you can also digitally zoom in, and the digital zoom is done by either drawing a box around the object that you want to see, or you can use your mouse, your vertical scroll on your mouse. So I'm zooming in right now with my vertical scroll wheel. You can also use the plus and minus buttons here to zoom in and zoom out. Let's say you zoom in, you want to see that car. You can just arrow up to the car, zoom in a little bit more, and notice that as you zoom in, it starts to get pixelated. That's perfectly normal. I don't know if you were around 10 plus years ago we didn't really have these HD cameras that we have now with all these megapixels, so you couldn't even zoom in very much without getting very pixelated. Now we can zoom in and see details and really have that forensic evidence when we have an incident. So I'm going to zoom out of this view here. Another thing that you can do is when you zoom in, you can actually use this box here, and you can control it to zoom, to basically look at anything on the screen at that particular magnification. So this is very similar in technology to a cell phone camera. When you take a picture or a video with your cell phone, you can digitally zoom in on live, or you can digitally zoom in on playback. It's the same thing. It's not going to affect the camera's recording. The camera will always record in this native field of view. So whatever you decide to zoom in yourself digitally, it's basically just to view something a little bit further away in a little bit more detail. So from here, there's also a hidden what's called a camera toolbar at the bottom. And this camera toolbar has a number of really useful features and functions. If your camera toolbar does not show when you hold your mouse over it, that like this camera, for example, just note that there's a little up arrow on the bottom left, and when you click it, you'll have access to this camera toolbar. If you don't want to see the camera toolbar at all and you're not interested in any of these, then you can just click that to hide it permanently. So with regard to the camera toolbar, there's a number of useful functions. The first one, I really don't use this one very much, honestly. This basically just creates, it sends the that particular camera to a new window, and it's only really useful if you have either multiple monitors, or if you have, let's say, one really large monitor, and you can let's say make this a little bit smaller, for example, and you know, make that one a little bit smaller and view them side by side. But I feel that I personally like to have cameras on one monitor and then my work on another monitor. The next one I use a lot. This is a great feature called independent playback. And the beauty of independent playback is just with one click of a button, you can go into playback and you can see, like for example, this person walking their dog. You can really just, without leaving the situational awareness of all your other cameras, you can leave them in live and just look at playback on this one particular camera. And then from here, you can digitally zoom in, that we talked about earlier, however way you want to zoom in. So independent playback is a great feature. The next one is bookmarking. Oh, and to exit independent playback, you would just click it again, and now you're back into live. So one-touch access between previously recorded footage and live. In reality, you know, you probably don't want to go more than I would say a few minutes with independent playback. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to use this particular interface, but you know, if you are comfortable with that, you can, for example, play backwards, you can play forwards, and you can also go frame by frame. So your cameras are typically recording at usually between 8 to 10 frames per second. So that's 8 to 10 images per second. So you can literally just go frame by frame and see each of those frames to see exactly what happened. This red bar indicates where you have recording. So here there was no recording. Here there's more recording. And we'll talk about this a little bit more when we go into playback. So I just exited independent playback by clicking it. Bookmarks, very, very useful. If you have an incident that's occurring now, let's say there's something that seems like there might be like a fight in the hallway, or there might be, let's say, there's a crash in the parking lot, or whatever. Anything that you think should be exported, because your camera system has a 30-day retention policy. So if an incident occurs, it's in your best interest to offload that footage before the 30 days is up, so that the recordings don't overwrite themselves. So, do we have a question? No? Okay. Sorry, I heard something in the background. So the bookmark function, let's say I want to bookmark this right here. So I clicked on that bookmark, and that's basically a live, on the live view, when you add a bookmark, it's a quick bookmark. It's just a quick one-touch button, and there's no option to create any kind of description or headline or anything that corresponds to that particular bookmark. When you're in playback, so for example, if we go to independent playback, and let's say this woman was bending down improperly, she potentially could damage her back like this. So I want to create a bookmark here, and I want to write about this, what I'm seeing here. So let's say a woman is bending over improperly, not with her knees, right? So everybody knows that this will cause back pain, right? And you can write a description here. So something like that. So it's important to know that on playback, you can add the headline, you can add the description, and then later when you search through your bookmarks, you can search for keywords either in the headline or the description, or in either field, in both fields. So that's the difference between saving a live bookmark, a quick bookmark on live, and a descriptive bookmark on playback. So I'm going to exit independent playback one more time. The next button is to create a snapshot. A snapshot, basically, it's like a screenshot. You know, it can be used. So all your snapshots are saved in. If you go to your settings button, it's the three buttons at the top, the three vertical buttons, and you go to your settings. Your snapshots path is right here. Whatever this path is for you, that's where your snapshots are saved. This is really useful. Send to printer. So let's say let's say you have an incident occurring right now. Let's say these two cars are, you know, close to each other or whatever. There's a potential crash. So by clicking the send to printer button, it creates a mini surveillance report, and it includes that screenshot where right when you click the send to printer button, it includes a screenshot of that, the camera name, the capture time, the report print time, and these two are almost exactly at the same time. But you can go back and play back and also create a report that's very similar to this. You're just going to have a much earlier image capture time. The user name, and then any kind of user notes. Let's say potential crash in the parking lot, for example. And this is really useful because you can print this as a PDF and share it with someone. You can print it as, you know, from your printer if you just want to hand it to, let's say, campus security, or however you want to do that. So by printing to PDF, just like you would print any PDF document, Microsoft Print to PDF, or if you have an actual printer connected, you can do that. The next option is to copy to clipboard. Copy to clipboard, I honestly don't use very much, but if you copy it to clipboard, you can essentially create, you know, an email, for example, or a Word document, and you can go over here and paste it on the Word document if you want, you can also put it in MS Paint. So if you have Paint on your system, which most people do, you can actually paste that onto your MS Paint, and then you'll also see the number of pixels. So this is indicative of a 5 megapixel camera. I mean, if you want, you can actually say, I want to, highlight or have your attention, for example, pointed to this vehicle here. This is the vehicle that's been parked here for the past week, something like that. But you can make that more clear with an actual surveillance report. So that's generally why I don't use that feature. And then the last one here is manual recording. Right now, this is a very active camera. I am recording the street. There's a lot of accidents here. This is a poor intersection here. There should be a traffic light. But this little red button here indicates that I'm recording. The green camera icon here indicates that we're showing live video. This little red person running icon means that motion was detected. Click the view to acknowledge this message. Okay, I clicked it. The little guy is gone. But you can see that it's still red. Both of these are red, and this one just turned green. So now that it's green, it's no longer recording. There's no more motion here. There's a car coming further away, and you can see that it didn't start recording until around this intersection. Why? Because I'm not really focused on this. But let's say there's something happening a little bit further away, and I don't know, let's say there's a fight, for example, and it's happening in the background. It's not happening here. You don't have any closer cameras, and you want to manually record because the motion trigger of an object which is that far away is a lot smaller than the object that's over here. So it's not triggering any kind of motion recording. So as a result, I'm gonna hit the manual record button, and by doing that, it's constantly recording until you say to stop. There's also a setting within the administrator's settings that you can have a manual recording set to a specific number of minutes. And then this last option over here under the More menu, I honestly don't really use this that much, but if you have multiple monitors and you want to send this particular camera to another monitor, I can click on More and then send to window, either to another cell, for example, in this view, or I can click on New Floating Window, which opens a new window with that particular cell, and I can actually drag it over to my other monitor. So again, it's useful if you have multiple monitors. If not, then you should have a really wide monitor to be able to minimize this and to see that other window at the same time. Or if you have another view, for example, and you want to see a camera on another view, you can do it that way, but I really don't recommend it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. If you have multiple streams, which I don't think the majority of users do, you can change streams this way. And if you can't digitally zoom in for whatever reason, you can always come into the More menu and make sure that this is toggled on. Without that being toggled on, I cannot digitally zoom in or out. I have to actually go into the More menu and make sure that this is selected so that I can zoom in. So that's an overview of the camera toolbar, digital zooming, views. I will also say that if you want to, let's say I don't want to leave this view, I want to add one of my indoor cameras to this view. So what I can do temporarily, if I wanted to add the indoor camera just temporarily to this view, I can expand underneath the views area. There's the cameras area. I can expand using the arrow button, and then I can expand my indoor group, and then drag and drop into this particular cell, this empty cell. Or if I want to rearrange my views, let's just say you don't like the way the views were set up. It makes more sense to you to, for example, have the east camera first in front of the west camera. So you would take your mouse and position it over the text, the title text above the camera's video window, and just take it and drag it over to this cell, and you can easily swap your cells. Again, this is a temporary method only. If you want to create a permanent view, you can do so in setup, which I'll discuss right now. But right before we get to that, if you ever want the view to go back to default, you can click this button up here to reload your view, and it will remove the camera that I added, and it will swap these back to the original position. Now, let's say you want to create your own views. You don't like how things were done, it's not logical to you, so you can click on setup, and if you have, let's say you have indoors and outdoors, that's fine. You want to be able to have, let's say, a larger view of one camera and see the rest in smaller views, so that you don't have to keep double clicking on one camera to maximize it to a higher resolution. So you can do that with something that's called a carousel view, and I'll show you how that looks right now. So first you have to think about the number of cameras that we currently have, as well as having that one extra larger cell for the carousel. So this is a total of 5 cameras. So I clicked on the view group, and I'm going to create a new view. With this button, I can create a new group. I already have a lot of groups, I don't need another one, so I'm just going to create a new view, and I'm going to say, there's different orientations, so if you have, I mean, you can use any of the orientations, but if you have, let's say, a vertical monitor that's, you know, like 9 by 16 instead of 16 by 9, that's really the only time that you want to, you know, really play around with these. But over here we have, let's say, the 1+5. You can see the one larger cell here, and then the 5 smaller ones around it. That would be perfect for this view because, you know, like this one, for example, not really as ideal because there's one larger one in the corner, and then there's a view that is, here, I'll just show you what it looks like. One that's like wider. This would be ideal for like maybe a fisheye camera or something that's just very, very wide. In which case I don't have here particularly, so I'm going to delete this view. I don't want that. I'm going to create a new view, and I'm going to choose this 1+5, and I'm going to call this my carousel. And with the carousel, I can take, so this is my server here. I'm going to expand that. I want to see all my outdoor cameras. So either I can take the cameras one by one and drag them, which is not very productive, or I can take the entire group, drag them to the small cells, and it'll automatically populate those cells with the 5 cameras. So we have 5 cells around this larger view, and we have 5 cameras. So by dragging that entire group over, you now have the ability to create this view. And then inside this larger cell, I'm going to put a carousel. And I'm sorry, not carousel. This is actually the hotspot, not the carousel. So this is the hotspot. So the hotspot will, let me rename this as well. This is the hotspot. So the hotspot will essentially allow you to do something that's quite interesting. I rarely use it myself, but I probably should use it more often. By clicking it once, it will load the image in the larger window, which is higher resolution than what you're seeing here. So you can see more details than what you're seeing here. This would be especially useful if you have a lot of cameras and you just want to do a one-click operation to see a larger, higher resolution, more detailed image without leaving the view of the other cameras. Because, you know, on my other view, on my outdoor view, if I wanted to do that, I would have to double click and then I don't see the other cameras. The carousel is something that you've probably seen before. It's really just, it's not, in my opinion, it's not very useful, but it essentially allows you to create a, here, we'll do a new view here. It allows you to create a, let's say I want to do all of my outdoor cameras and I want them to cycle over an interval time of 5 seconds. And you can change the number of seconds per camera. Go back to live mode, and now the carousel is essentially cycling through every 5 seconds. So I don't like it because, you know, if something is happening on one camera, I'm not seeing it. You can also note that you have some controls down here, so you can, you know, back up. You can take control. You can pause. What is this trash over here, for example? You can move forward, and so on and so forth. So that's how you can create views. Whatever makes the most sense to you in terms of how you want the camera structured. The hotspot, I think, probably makes the most logical sense between seeing a number of cameras in lower resolution and then one camera in higher resolution. So if you want to hide this view and be able to switch views quickly, you can do that with this drop down. So the advantage of that is you're not seeing all the actual the pane with the actual views and the cameras. You can just, you know, cycle through them here quickly and easily. Another way to cycle quickly through between views is using this pin at the top here. You can create a new tab. It says to select a view. I'm going to select, let's say, my I don't know, my indoor cameras, for example. So now I have indoors over here, I have outdoors over here. I can quickly cycle through them. And when you're done with it, you can just X out of it and you no longer have that tab. Okay, so we are about halfway through, a little bit more than halfway through. Privacy masks. Privacy masks it's something that, let's say if I had a vehicle here with a license plate and there was a burglar that jumped over the wall, I could put a privacy mask over that vehicle's license plate, and I can show you that a little bit more on the export. It's generally for administrators who want to mask a sensitive area that is not moving. It must be fixed, because once you mask that area, then you can't see past it. So there are two types of privacy masks. The first one is an opaque mask, which is permanent. You cannot remove it under any circumstance. Let's say, for example, there's a dressing room and you want to view the public part of it but not the private part of it, so you can put a permanent privacy mask over the private part of it. There's also a temporary privacy mask, which can be used for, let's say, a license plate. If you want to cover a license plate, you know, or let's say another fixed area of the image during an export. So I've gone over live and all the features that you have in the live view. From the view where you see live, you can very easily with one click toggle between live and playback. And as I discussed earlier, the red means that motion was recorded. I'm going to go over this whole view now, this whole screen now, specifically regarding playback. So we know that this is a very active camera. It's looking at a street. This is a very inactive camera. It's looking at the alley. If you're seeing the difference between the two, the top line on this timeline is indicative of the motion that was recorded by the camera that's selected. So you can tell that this camera is selected because there's a blue square or rectangle around it. And so if you click on another camera, you see the level of motion is drastically different because this is looking at a less active area. The second line, the bottom line in this timeline is all the cameras. So if I want to know how long this system has been recording, or what's the earliest recording I have for this system, I can just choose the camera of interest and use this button here to go to the first sequence. So I've gone back about 27, 28 days, and this was the first sequence for this particular camera. That's this button right here. The next one, and I'm actually going to go to the last sequence to show you, right now it's 8:34 a.m. and the last recording I had was just around 8:34 and 19 seconds. With this button, it'll go to the previous sequence. So from here, it'll jump to here basically. And then from here, it'll jump to here, and so on. You can also, you can play forward, you can play backward, you can play frame by frame. So forward frame, frame by frame. Again, you have about 8 to 10 frames per second, so you can go frame by frame, do your investigation, you can zoom in digitally, and you can also use this slider bar to scrub the video and see fractional seconds. So right below the slider bar, you see fractional seconds here. You can also adjust the playback. There's a little drop down here. Let's say you want to play it back in slow motion half the time. So and you want to, let's say, play backwards now in a quarter of the time. So that would be useful if you ever want to see something like the context around the event. Let's say you don't know what you're looking for, but you think that it happened around, let's say, within the past hour. So I'm going to go back to around this time here. I'm going to play forward, and I'm going to select a faster playback speed. So now things are happening really quickly. Let's say I'm looking for the man that's walking on the sidewalk. I can do that using this. It's not going fast enough. I don't see anybody. I want to go to 8 times speed. And I'm going to have my finger on the pause sign so that if I see the man walking on the sidewalk, I can quickly pause the video. I still don't see the man. I don't want to sit here forever. Time is money. So 16 times. So I'm going to play back at 16 times now. Oh, we just saw the man. We have to now go backwards. So I'm going to reduce the speed to normal. I'm going to go back a little bit and look for that man on the sidewalk. So that's basically, one way that you can do this. It was just right around there. So that's the playback speed, the different controls over here. And then another thing I like to really use here, this is in my opinion, well, we'll go over it in a second, but from the playback timeline, you can also see saved bookmarks. This was the quick bookmark that we made on live view earlier. You can see this, I don't know if everybody can see it, but it's like a blue or turquoise color bookmark on the timeline. Even if you're not on that particular camera, you can see that this is another very active camera looking at the same street. I know that there's a bookmark here. And when you hold your mouse over the bookmark, it'll play back that video, and it will show you the headline and the description. So again, bookmarks, very useful. If there's ever an incident or anything you want to share with anybody, or anytime you want to go back and look at something in the timeline and pull it up very, very quickly, you can do that using the bookmarks. Now we're going to go to the search. So search, you can do two types of searches: basic search or smart search. In the basic search, you have a time interval, and these are default time intervals within the software. The last 2 hours, the last 6 hours, the last 12 hours, last 24 hours. So, if you're looking for something that happened this morning, you'll probably use the last 2 hours. If you're looking at something for something that happened, I actually had a mailbox incident sometime last week. I don't really know when. So I want to, for example, look at the last 7 days, and I know that it happened on the front gate camera. And so with this, it essentially populates a lot of results of motion that occurred on this camera. It's a very active camera. No one in their right mind is going to go through 5,000 plus images. There's actually a lot more. So I want to filter this down for motion. So now, again, the camera is recording on motion, so there's really no filter there that really helped me. But to actually, because I know that it happened on the actual mailbox, I'm going to do a smart search. So over here you have specify motion area, and you get this window that pops up. The red area indicates the areas that are excluded from motion. So I am going to highlight just the mailbox area right here. There are some plants here that kind of cause motion in the wind, so it's not the best way to do this. If there's any kind of motion, any kind of tree, let's say, that's the branches are moving with the wind, or let's say the tree causes, for example, shadows on the ground, and the shadows are moving with the wind, it creates a lot of unnecessary motion, and it doesn't really work for you. But if you see here, I went from like several thousand views, several thousand results to 355. Now, I don't know about you, I have great eyes, but I can't really see what's happening here. So I'm going to use the thumbnail size here, and I'm going to increase the thumbnail size to something that I can clearly see. I can clearly see here that there's people. I don't see people anywhere else. What happened exactly, and I can double click on here to see what happened. Is this something that I need to be concerned with? No, there was nobody here, playing around with the mailbox. So no, this is not something I need to be concerned with. I can double click to go back, and I can go down the list here. I can either use this to go down the list, or I can use the vertical mouse wheel, or if you're using a laptop, just the same way that you go down a page. So that's smart search. It only shows you motion that is detected within a certain area, and you'll be using this a lot. Now, you can see that the results are going up. I'm going to show you a way that I like to use to kind of narrow it down a little bit more. So, for example, I'm going to do the motion search again, and I'm going to show an area right here behind this sign. It's generally a place where if I want to know where people are actually going in and out of the door, I see more people this way. That's how I've learned to optimize the view on this particular camera. There's also a way to search for bookmarks. So you can search for bookmarks that you created, and you can further filter your existing search, meaning the existing search was any bookmark that I created within the past 2 hours on camera number 1. I'm going to further filter the search, so it's going to show me any kind of motion in that specific area. If I remove that specific area, I see the bookmarks that were created. Now, if I go back and just say I only want to search bookmarks, here are the bookmarks. I have the ability to search my own bookmarks. If I want to search others' bookmarks, then I can just leave this unchecked. If I want to search only my own, I would just check it and the results will populate. I can search for, let's say, the woman, for example, who's bending over. This is searching by keyword. So again, that's bookmarks, and that's how powerful it is. You can take these bookmarks and you can essentially, let's say the woman bending over improperly is something that I am highly concerned with. I want to be able to export this before the footage overwrites itself. So by selecting the search, I can send an item to export. I'm going to add this to my export list. I can add multiple to the export list. Let's say, for example, this is another one that I want to add. And so by clicking this button, I can add these to the export list, and we will go over that in a second. But other options here, I don't really use this, but this is a mini surveillance report with both cameras selected, showing the bookmark descriptions for both. And you can edit your bookmarks, you can delete your bookmarks, but once you search and find what you're looking for, you can go to your exports tab, and from here you can say, okay, I want to, by using this slider here, I can zoom into the timeline. This is just a short incident, so I went from viewing a week to viewing a minute, and within this minute I can reduce the amount of video. Let's say I only want to see where she delivered the mail and left, so I only want to see that much time. And by reducing the amount of time that you have on a video, you will speed up your exports, and you'll have a shorter video for someone to play. The other video, let's say the woman bending over, I only want to see when she was bending over and right the second leading up to it. So I'm going to put that there. And then this one, she's not even in the view anymore. So I'm going to go backwards until she just about left the view. So now I have my exports. I'm going to click on export settings. Here is, before I do that, if I wanted to mask out anything, let's say I don't want this car, I don't want to know what car people, I don't want people to know that I drive this car. So let's say I click this plus sign. I'm going to mask out this area right here. This is essentially going to add a mask to the video so that this object will be completely masked out. So when it gets played back, when it gets played back, they're not going to see this at all. So now I'm going to click on export settings. If you are giving this to someone who is not using Smart Client, let's say the police department or someone like the news media, for example, you want to include the XProtect Smart Client player. That will give the user the ability to play back the file. Without this, you can share it with your colleagues, for example. You can add comments to the export. Woman bending over, for example. You can choose to always include this comment. And then I am going to close this and click on create export. My comments are there. There's my export, my file name. It's going to go into a specific path that is made for you, and then you export that. I'm going to say password 1234567 1234567 create, and now you can see the progress of the export. So you can you can password protect your exports. You can have privacy masks. You can prevent re-export. You can include the smart client player. You can add comments so that whoever sees the exports can see why you created this export and what exactly you meant to do with it. So in this case, I have 2 exports created, and once they finish exporting, I can click on Export Details, go to the path, go to the client files, and here I can see the data that I exported, and if you double click it, it will essentially open the smart client player, put my password in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, connect, and it will play back the footage. So you can see the comments here, and so on and so forth. You have the same controls. Here that you did in the regular smart client, and you can see here the privacy mask that we created.